I am writing this from a motel room 60 miles outside of Ashford. My sister and her 2 kids are asleep in the bed behind me. We got out maybe an hour ago, and I do not know how long we have before they find us again. I need to get this down while I still can, while I still remember what is real and what is not, while I am still myself. My name is Ruben Cortez. I am 28 years old, and until 3 days ago, I worked as a night security guard at a warehouse complex in Ashford. It is a mid-sized city, about 300,000 people, the kind of place where nothing much happens. Safe, boring, normal. It is not normal anymore. It is not safe. And if you live anywhere in the Southwest, it might not be safe where you are either. Let me start from the beginning. It was a Wednesday night in October, around 11:30. I was making my rounds at the warehouse, walking the perimeter like I did every night, checking locks and gates and making sure no one was where they should not be. The job was easy, mostly just walking and watching, giving me plenty of time to think. That night, I saw something outside the fence. At first, I thought it was a dog, a big one, maybe a German Shepherd mix, standing at the edge of the parking lot where the security lights did not quite reach. It was perfectly still, watching me. Dogs do not stand like that. They shift their weight, they sniff the air, they move. This thing was rigid, deliberate, like a statue pretending to be a dog. And its eyes caught the light wrong, reflecting back at me with a gleam that made my stomach turn. I told myself I was imagining things. Too many night shifts, not enough sleep, the darkness playing tricks on me. I finished my rounds and went back inside, and when I looked out again, the dog was gone. But it was not the last strange thing I saw. Over the next few nights, the animals got worse. A cat that walked on 2 legs when it thought no one was watching, dropping to 4 the moment I turned my flashlight toward it. A coyote standing at the edge of the parking lot with its body facing away from me, but its head turned completely backward, staring at me over its own spine. Birds that sat on the fence and did not fly away when I approached, just watched with eyes that seemed too knowing, too intelligent for birds. I tried to rationalize it. Rabies, maybe. Some disease making animals act strange, but deep down, I knew that was not it. I grew up in New Mexico, near the Navajo reservation. My grandmother told me stories when I was a kid, stories about things that wore animal skins, things that could take any form, things that mimicked voices to lure people to their deaths. She called them Ye-Nal-Lushi, Skinwalkers. She told me they stayed in the desert, in the wild places, far from cities and crowds. She told me they were rare, solitary, dangerous, but avoidable if you knew the signs. She never told me what to do if they came to a city. She never told me what to do if there were dozens of them, hundreds. The first time I heard the voice was about a week after I saw the dog. I was outside the warehouse, checking the back gate, when someone called my name. It came from the darkness beyond the fence, from the empty lot that backed up to our property. It was my mother's voice, exactly my mother's voice, down to the slight accent she has never lost. "Ruben, come help me. I fell down. Please, help me." My mother lives in New Mexico, 2,000 miles away. She would never come to Ashford without telling me, and she would certainly never be wandering around an industrial district at midnight. I walked toward the fence anyway, drawn by the sound, by the familiarity of it. I got within 10 feet of the chain link before I stopped myself. "Reuben, please. It hurts. Come help me." The voice came from a different direction now, to my left, then behind me, then from above, as if something was circling me, testing me, seeing if I would follow. I did not go. Something in my gut, some instinct older than thought, told me that whatever was calling me was not my mother, had never been my mother, wanted me to come into the darkness where no one would find me. I went back inside and locked the door and did not go out again until my shift ended at 6 in the morning. That was when I started paying attention, really paying attention. The news was full of strange stories. Animals attacking people in ways that did not make sense. Missing persons cases spiking across the city. A woman called the police to report that her husband came home from work, but was not her husband anymore. She could not explain what she meant by that. She just kept saying something was wrong with him. Something was different. Something was wearing his face, but it was not him. The police dismissed her as hysterical. They dismissed most of the reports. Animal attacks were blamed on rabies. Missing persons were blamed on drugs or domestic issues or people just wanting to disappear. No one was connecting the dots. I tried to tell myself I was being paranoid, tried to convince myself that the old stories were just stories, that my grandmother's warnings were superstition, that there was a rational explanation for everything I was seeing. Then Luis did not show up for his shift. Luis Padilla had worked with me for almost a year. Good guy, reliable, always on time. When he did not show up one night, I figured he was sick or had car trouble. It happened. The next night, Luis appeared at the warehouse gate. I saw him through the security camera first, standing at the entrance, waiting to be buzzed in. I grabbed my radio to tell him I was coming, but something made me pause. Something about the way he was standing, too still, too rigid. That same wrongness I had seen in the dog weeks ago. I went to the gate, but did not open it. I stood on my side of the chain link and looked at Luis, and Luis looked back at me. His movements were slightly off, not dramatically wrong, not obviously inhuman, just a little delayed, like someone learning to operate a body they were not used to. His eyes did not blink, not once the entire time I watched him. "Hey, Reuben," he said. "Let me in, man. I forgot my key card." His voice was Luis's voice, but the rhythm was wrong. The pauses were in the wrong places. It sounded like someone who had heard Luis speak and was trying to copy it without understanding how conversation actually worked. "Where were you last night?" I asked. Luis smiled. The smile was too wide, too sudden, like a reflex rather than an expression. "Sick," he said. "Feeling better now. Come on, let me in. It is cold out here." I did not let him in. Luis stood at that gate for 3 hours. I watched him on the security camera, standing perfectly still, except for occasional movements that seemed designed to look natural, but failed. Every few minutes, he would ask to be let in. Same words, same inflection, over and over. "Let me in, Reuben. Come on, let me in." When the sky started to lighten toward dawn, Luis turned and walked away. Not toward the parking lot, not toward any car, just into the shadows between buildings, disappearing into the darkness like he had never been there at all. I never saw the real Luis again. Whatever was wearing his face showed up at the warehouse a few more times, always at night, always asking to be let in. I never opened the gate. After Luis, I started watching people more carefully. At the grocery store, at the gas station, on the street, I looked for the signs my grandmother had told me about. The wrong movements, the unblinking eyes, the delayed responses to questions, as if something had to search for the right words before speaking. I found more than I expected. Maybe 1 in 20 people showed the signs. Maybe more. They were everywhere, hidden in plain sight, wearing stolen faces and living stolen lives. At the coffee shop I used to go to every morning, the barista who had worked there for years suddenly could not remember my usual order. She smiled when I reminded her, but the smile was wrong, and she kept looking at me with a hunger that had nothing to do with selling coffee. At the gas station near my apartment, I watched a man fill his car with gas for 15 minutes. The pump clicked off after 2 minutes, but he just stood there, holding the nozzle, staring at nothing. When I walked past him, his head turned to follow me, but his body stayed perfectly still. At the park, where I sometimes walked on my days off, I saw a woman pushing an empty stroller, back and forth, along the same path, making the same cooing sounds to a child that was not there. When I got closer, I could see the stroller had been empty for a long time. Cobwebs in the corners, dust on the seat. She smiled at me as I passed. Her eyes did not blink. They were learning to blend in, but they were not perfect yet. If you knew what to look for, you could see the seams, the places where the disguise did not quite fit. My neighbor, Mrs. Albright, was one of them. She had lived next door to me for years, a kind woman in her 70s who brought me cookies and asked about my day. I had always liked her. She reminded me of my grandmother. One evening, I was in my apartment when I heard her voice through the wall. At first, I thought she was talking to someone, maybe on the phone. Then I realized she was repeating the same phrase over and over. "How are you today, Reuben? How are you today, Reuben? How are you today, Reuben?" Over and over, for hours. Each repetition slightly different, like she was practicing, trying to get the inflection right, trying to sound natural. The next morning, I saw her in the hallway. She smiled at me, that same too wide smile I had seen on Luis. "How are you today, Reuben?" she asked. Her eyes did not blink. I told her I was fine and locked myself in my apartment. I did not come out for the rest of the day. I tried to report what I was seeing. I went to the police station, filled out a report, told the officer everything. He listened patiently, nodding at all the right moments, writing on his notepad. Except he was not writing. His pen never moved on the paper. He just held it there, making the motion of writing without actually doing anything. His eyes did not look away from my face, not once. When I finished, he smiled and said they would look into it. Same smile, same too wide stretch of lips over too many teeth. As I left the station, I saw officers watching me from every window, all of them smiling, none of them blinking. The police were compromised. Maybe the whole city government. I could not trust anyone, could not report to anyone, could not ask for help from anyone. I was alone in a city that was being hollowed out and filled with something else. They knew I knew. That was the worst part. After my visit to the police station, they stopped pretending around me. Animals watched from every corner, standing wrong, staring wrong. Dogs that should have been sleeping sat rigid on porches, their heads turning to follow me as I walked past. Cats perched on fences, dozens of them, all facing my direction, all perfectly still. People followed me at distances, never approaching, just watching. They would be there when I left my apartment, there when I arrived at work, there when I stopped for gas. Different faces every time, but the same empty eyes, the same hungry smiles. Voices called my name from empty alleys, from behind closed doors, from the darkness between streetlights. They used my mother's voice, my father's voice, the voice of a friend who had died 3 years ago in a car accident. "Reuben, come here. Reuben, we miss you. Reuben, why are you running? We just want to talk. We just want to help. We have such a beautiful place waiting for you." I stopped sleeping, barely ate, spent every moment watching, waiting, trying to figure out what to do. Then my boss called me into his office. Mr. Hendricks had been my supervisor for 2 years. Decent guy, fair, the kind of boss who left you alone as long as you did your job. When I walked into his office that night, I knew immediately that Mr. Hendricks was gone. The thing behind the desk moved wrong, spoke wrong, looked at me with hunger barely hidden behind professional politeness. "We have noticed some concerns about your performance," it said with Mr. Hendricks's voice. "Some of your co-workers have mentioned you seem paranoid, distracted, not yourself." It smiled, and the smile had too many teeth. Not obviously, not grotesquely, just enough to be wrong, just enough to make my skin crawl. "We think you should take some time off. Go home, rest. We will take care of everything here." I agreed. I nodded and smiled and said I would go home and rest. I walked out of the office, out of the warehouse, got in my car. I did not go home. I drove out of the city. No destination in mind, just away. I stopped at a gas station about 20 miles past the city limits, hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the pump. The attendant inside seemed normal. He blinked. He moved naturally. He responded to my questions without that awful delay. I almost cried at the sight of a normal human being. "Strange things happening in Ashford," he said when I paid for my gas. "Been hearing stories, people acting funny, animals showing up where they should not be. You getting out?" I nodded. "Smart," he said. "Whatever is going on in there, I do not think it is staying contained much longer." I drove to the next town, a small place called Ridgemont, and found a motel. I paid cash for a room and spent hours searching on my phone for any information about what was happening. I found scattered reports from other cities, animal attacks in Phoenix that did not match any known animal behavior, missing persons in Denver, dozens in the past month, strange behavior in Albuquerque, people acting wrong, families reporting that loved ones had changed. The same patterns spreading across the Southwest. I found a forum where people were sharing stories. Most of them sounded crazy, the kind of thing that would get you laughed at or ignored. But I read them anyway, and the details matched what I had seen. Unblinking eyes, wrong movements, voices calling from the darkness, using the voices of people you loved. One post was from a woman in Tucson. She said her entire neighborhood had changed over the course of a week. One by one, people started acting different, smiling too much, standing too still, asking questions they already knew the answers to, as if testing whether she had noticed. She said she got out before they came for her. She said she drove until she could not drive anymore, until she reached a small town in the mountains where people still seemed normal. The post was 3 days old. I scrolled down to see if she had posted again. She had. One final message, just 2 words. They're here. Nothing after that. Ashford was not unique. Ashford was just where I happened to notice. My phone rang. The screen showed my mother's number. I answered, desperate to hear a real human voice, desperate for someone to tell me I was not crazy. "Reuben, where are you? We have been so worried about you." It sounded exactly like my mother. Every inflection, every note of concern, perfect. But my mother has never called me Reuben, not once in my entire life. She has always called me Ray. "Ray," I said, my voice shaking. "You call me Ray." Silence on the other end. 3 seconds, 4, 5. Then something spoke that was no longer my mother. A voice low and guttural, wet and wrong, like vocal cords being used by something that did not understand how they worked. "Come home, Reuben. We are waiting for you. We have a place for you. We have a skin for you." I hung up and threw the phone out the window. I lay on the motel bed for hours, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what to do. I could run. I could keep driving, get as far from Ashford as possible, try to outrun whatever was spreading across the region. But I had family in Ashford. My sister Elena and her 2 kids, a boy and a girl, 7 and 5 years old. I had been so focused on my own survival that I had not even thought about them. I had to go back. The highway into Ashford was nearly empty. A few cars passed me heading out, loaded with belongings, families fleeing the city without understanding why. They felt the wrongness, even if they could not name it. No cars were heading in. No one was coming to Ashford anymore. A mile from the city limits, I hit a roadblock. Police cars, officers standing in the road, lights flashing. I slowed down, my heart pounding, ready to turn around and find another way. But the officers waved me through, all of them smiling, none of them blinking. "Welcome home," one of them said as I passed. His voice was cheerful, friendly, wrong. I drove into the city without responding. The streets were worse than I remembered. People stood on sidewalks, in yards, on porches, all facing the same direction, all watching my car pass, all smiling those 2 wide smiles. I drove to Elena's house on the east side of the city, my hands gripping the wheels so tight my knuckles went white. Her neighborhood looked normal from a distance. Lights in windows, cars in driveways, nothing obviously wrong. I pulled into her driveway and sat in the car for a long moment, terrified of what I might find inside. Eleanor answered the door before I could knock. For a moment, my heart stopped. I looked at her face, searched for the signs, waited for the wrong smile or the unblinking eyes. Then she said, "Ray," and pulled me into a hug, and I knew she was still human. Her kids were inside, scared but unharmed. Eleanor had noticed the changes over the past week, had kept her family inside for 3 days, had not let anyone in, no matter how familiar they looked or sounded. "Something is wrong with the neighbors," she said. "Something is wrong with everyone. I do not know what is happening, but I knew we had to stay inside." I told her we had to leave. Now, tonight. We packed what we could carry in 20 minutes. Clothes, food, water, whatever would fit in my car. The kids were confused and frightened, asking questions I could not answer. As we backed out of the driveway, the neighbors emerged from their houses, all of them, at the same time, standing in their yards, watching us with those unblinking eyes, smiling those 2 wide smiles. "Where are you going?" they called out, all of them at once, dozens of voices asking the same question in perfect unison. "Stay with us! Join us! Become us!" I floored the gas pedal and did not look back. We made it to the city limits. The checkpoint was empty now, the police cars abandoned, the officers gone. Their doors were standing open, lights still flashing, but no one was there. I did not want to think about where they had gone. I did not want to think about what they were doing. We drove through without stopping. The highway stretched out ahead of us, dark and empty, the headlights cutting through the night. Eleanor sat in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The kids had fallen asleep in the back, exhausted by fear and confusion, blessedly unaware of how close we had come to losing everything. I kept checking the rearview mirror, expecting to see headlights following us, expecting to see those smiling faces in pursuit. But the road behind us stayed dark. Whatever they wanted with Ashford, chasing a few escapees did not seem to be part of it. At least, not yet. In the rearview mirror, the city glowed against the dark sky, and standing at the side of the road, just visible in the taillights, a figure watched us go. It wore my face, not a mask, not a disguise. My face, my body, my clothes, a perfect copy, standing at the edge of the highway, smiling that 2 wide smile. It waved goodbye. "See you soon," it mouthed. I could read the words, even from this distance. We have been at this motel for an hour now. Elena and the kids are asleep. I cannot sleep. I do not think I will ever sleep again. I do not know where we will go. I do not know how far the Skinwalkers have spread. I do not know if there is anywhere left that is safe. All I know is that they are taking over. City by city, person by person, replacing us with things that wear our faces and speak with our voices, but are not us, have never been us. They came from the desert, from the wild places, and they are not stopping at the edges anymore. They are adapting, spreading, multiplying, and somewhere out there, something is wearing my face, walking around in my skin, living my life while I run. If you are reading this, pay attention to the people around you. Watch for the signs, the wrong movements, the unblinking eyes, the smiles that are too wide, too sudden, too hungry. If they call your name from the darkness, do not answer. If someone you love seems different, seems wrong, do not trust them. And if you live anywhere in the Southwest, anywhere near the desert, anywhere the old stories still hold power, consider leaving now, before it is too late. They are spreading, they are hungry, and sooner or later, they will reach wherever you are. I have to go now. Elena is waking up, and we need to keep moving. I do not know if I will be able to post again. I do not know if we will make it. But I had to warn someone. I had to try. Stay safe. Trust no one. And whatever you do, do not let them in.